the region covered in water. IGN rated Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire 7.8 out of 10 because it was covered with too much of it. Both of these games, though, were definitely mass improvements over the original Hoenn games in terms of Pokemon moves, typings, and so many other things that just increase the player's Pokemon experience. Because of these factors, we are going to be going over the best team for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire rather than the originals. But because there are a lot of really good Pokemon in the remakes, and have been improved on since the originals, I thought I would call for some help to narrow down these possibilities. But because everyone was busy, I had to call on my friend, Nobby Scuffles.
Wow. And that's Zeldawars to you. Anyway, as Mystic said, I am here to help decide what Pokemon will benefit you the most in ORAS. Keep in mind this team is only a suggestion based on type coverage, stats, and movesets and how much each Pokemon contributes to the team. We will also only be talking about level up moves and moves that Pokemon can learn via TM. So egg moves and tutor moves will not be mentioned in this video, especially with the majority of tutor moves only being accessible post-game.
Not to mention, we will also be analyzing each Pokemon and how they do against the Gym Leaders, the Elite Four members, Champion, the evil teams, and even the player's rival. As always though, we will only be taking a look at a team that revolves around the best starter for that specific region, so there will not be a team for the other starter Pokemon. This will only be a single team revolving around the starter that we consider as best.
Now with all that out of the way, let's take a look at the Hoenn region.
Starting off our team, we have to pick our starter Pokemon, but which one is the best?
Well, on Arizo's channel we decided that Torchic is—
Whoa, hold on a minute. I'm going to have to disagree and say that Mudkip is the best starter.
Oh, okay. I guess we'll pick Mudkip.
Mudkip definitely is the best. Mudkip's final evolution does neutrally well against everyone due to its only weakness being grass. Secondly, this Pokemon can dish out hits as well as it can take them, so Swampert can pretty much be used in any kind of battle that doesn't involve grass type Pokemon, with the proper moveset of course.
Mudkip starts off strong against Roxanne with Water Gun, mows down Watson's team with Marshtomp's Mud Shot, and do I really need to tell you how well it does against Flannery? Both of its typings are super effective against her Pokemon. Antate and Liza shouldn't be much of a problem since Lunatone and Solrock are both rock type.
In terms of the evil teams, the Mudkip line dominates Team Magma Grunts in Omega Ruby and does very well against Maxie. With Team Aqua, Swampert does neutrally well even against Archie. As far as the rival battles, the only Pokemon that the Mudkip line struggles with is its rival starter, and with the rival choosing the opposite starter, this can be said for any of the three starters, and once again there will be team members to cover that later on. Lastly, we have the Elite Four and Champion. Swampert does neutrally well against everyone in the Elite Four, besides for a few Pokemon being Sydney Shiftry and Cacturne, as well as Steven Scrodilli.
Obvious moves for Swampert are Earthquake and Waterfall because of Stab, and to cover Swampert's only weakness, Grass, we think Ice Beam is the best move to teach it. Yes, Swampert is more of a physical attacker, but its special attack isn't all that bad, with a base of 85. Especially if you Mega Evolve Swampert, it's now base 95. And honestly, since those three are all you really need, its last lock can be really whatever you want. It can be Surf so you don't have to carry an HM Slave just for that move. It can be Hammer Arm for more coverage, or you can even teach it Rain Dance for Mega Swampert's Swift Swim ability.
So now that we have confirmed that the Mudkip line is the best starter, we need to find more team members to revolve around it. I think we should go in order of how early the Pokemon can be obtained. So the first Pokemon we're going to add to our team is Ralts, and then later on Gardevoir. Gardevoir is one of those Pokemon with amazing coverage attacks, so Gardevoir can help in almost any situation. To start gyms off though, Gardevoir does neutrally well against all of the gyms, besides for Watson's having part Steel type Pokemon. By that point though, Mudkip has already evolved into Marshtomp and can take out Watson's team within seconds. The gym leaders the Ralts line excels the best with though are Brawly and Winona's Altaria. As far as the rivals Pokemon, Gardevoir does neutrally well against all of their Pokemon in every battle that is presented. For evil teams, Gardevoir does amazingly well against Grunts on both teams because the most common Grunt Pokemon are Dark and Poison types, and does neutrally well against any others. Gardevoir also does very well against both Maxie and Archie's team. The only Pokemon we caution is their Crobat. Crobat is very fast and can definitely hit very hard with Poison Fang. Finally, we have the Elite Four. Gardevoir does well against Sydney and Drake. Pokemon we caution are Sydney Sharpedo, and remember that with Gardevoir's Psychic typing, Dark type attacks still do neutral damage. And with Gardevoir also having a Mega Form, this Pokemon can be even more helpful.
For a final moveset, we think Gardevoir should have Psychic and Moonblast for stab, and should have Calm Mind to boost its special attack even more. Or, if you want even more coverage, maybe instead of Calm Mind, give it Focus Blast. And for its final move, it should be Shadow Ball, to not only take advantage of its special attack, but to cover those Ghost-type Pokemon for whenever you need it, and to cover against other Psychic types such as Tate and Liza's Lunatone and Solrock. We recommend not keeping Gardevoir in on the Ghost type because of its obvious type disadvantage, but if needed, Gardevoir can definitely take a few Shadow Balls, especially with Phoebe's Pokemon having a higher physical attack stat than special attack stat. Gardevoir does have a special defense of 115, so it definitely is possible. One more Pokemon we forgot to mention is Steven's Claydol. Shadow Ball does great against that. Focus Blast can be used to take care of its Steel weakness, so Gardevoir can be another option for you in Glacia's Ice types and Steven's Steel types. Just keep in mind its poor accuracy, and once again, only use if necessary, especially against Steven's team.
So now since our second Pokemon is out of the way, let's head over to Dewford Town and make our way down to Granite Cave, where we can find Makuhita, and then later on evolve it into Hariyama. Makuhita first starts off its gym domination spree with Watson's gym, as most of his Pokemon are Steel type. The player can also take advantage of the paralysis from Watson's Magnemite to enable Makuhita to use its Guts ability. Although the Guts ability is definitely very good for the Makuhita line, we are actually going to give ours the Thick Fat ability. We will explain this later on. The gym leader where this Pokemon gets its main spotlight though is Norman's gym. However, there is a slight problem with this gym leader. Slacking and Vigoroth are death machines. Their attack stats are ridiculously high, and their speed stats aren't anything to laugh at neither. Not to mention they get Retaliate. This attack does more power every time a Pokemon on Norman's team faints. However, Hariyama can tank or Retaliate with its full effect placed. Trust me, we did the calculations. After Hariyama takes the Retaliate though, immediately potion it up. Truant will kick in right after, and then Hariyama can start destroying Norman's team with Vital Throw, as it is the best fighting move it can get up to that point in the game. For the rival battles, there is only one Pokemon that Hariyama does well against, and that is their Magcargo. And with the Thick Fat ability, Fire type attacks barely leave a scratch. As for Team Magma and Team Aqua, it does well with the majority of the grunts being Dark types. With Maxie and Archie, Hariyama does decently well, more so with Archie having 2 Dark types. With Maxie though, Hariyama can be used for taking Fire type attacks from his Camerupt if needed, and can be used to take on Maxie's Mightyena. Finally, for the Elite Four members, Hariyama does well against Sydney, Glacia, and Steven. Though it does do well against these 3 members, there are always Pokemon to be cautious of. For example, Sydney, Shiftry, and Absol both carry Psychic type attacks. Glacia has her 2 Frostlass, and we have Steven's Claydol, Skarmory, and Metagross. Overall, this Pokemon is just a tank, big HP, and strong hitting.
For Hariyama's final moveset, we recommend Close Combat for Stab, Bulk Up to raise its attack and defense, and Earthquake and Stone Edge for coverage. Stone Edge is helpful for its Flying type weakness and during the Elite Four with Glacia. Since she has 2 Frostlass, who are part Ghost, Fighting type hits won't be effective. This is where Stone Edge comes in. It's not Stab, but Frostlass doesn't have that great of defense being at base 70. And I don't think I need to remind you of Hariyama's base attack being 120 and Stone Edge having a power of 100, so Stone Edge should take care of that. But just like Gardevoir and Focus Blast, keep in mind that Stone Edge doesn't have the best accuracy in the world. And honestly, Glacia is the reason we suggest giving Hariyama the Thick Fat ability, to make it a bit more bulky against those Ice and Fire type Pokemon. As for Steven's Pokemon like Metagross and Claydol, just leave those to Swampert, and for Skarmory, just leave that one to one of our next Pokemon.
So for every Pokemon playthrough team, a flyer is needed. No one wants to run around the region everywhere and constantly have to go to the PC just to get a Pokemon out to fly. While we're in the area of Granite Cave, let's go ahead and catch our 4th Pokemon, Zubat. Zubat isn't exactly the greatest Pokemon in the beginning, but as it levels up and evolves, it can be one of the best flying Pokemon available in Hoenn. To make things easy and simple, the Zubat line doesn't exactly do the greatest against the gym leaders besides Brawly, as it quad-resists fighting types. The rival, however, is a different story, as the Zubat line completely dominates the rival starter Pokemon being Sceptile. With the starter Sceptile now fully covered, we can also say that Swampert's Grass weakness is covered completely, as it quad-resists Grass type attacks. As for evil teams, Crobat does neutrally well against all of the grunts in Maxie and Archie. Just be cautious of Maxie's Camerupt having Rock Slide, and Archie's Sharpedo having Ice Fang. For Elite Four members, Crobat's overall matchup isn't the greatest, being neutral against 3, and not doing well against Glacia or Steven. But there are a couple of Pokemon that it could help out against throughout the league, and those are Sydney's Grass types. Just watch out for Extra Sensory from Shiftry. Overall, Crobat isn't exactly the greatest member on our team so far, but it does allow the player access to Fly, and it has coverage for Swampert's and Gardevoir's weaknesses.
For Crobat, we recommend Fly for 2 reasons. 1, it is the strongest flying move it can learn, and 2, it allows you to fly in and out of towns without having to get a separate Pokemon for that. I know Crobat can get Brave Bird, but that is only an egg move, and honestly, do you really want to go through all the trouble to get it? It's not a competitive team. We also recommend giving Crobat Cross Poison, again for Stab. just find a heart scale and go to the move relearner to get it. And lastly, we suggest Roost for health regen and Steel Wing for coverage. X-Scissor is also another good option for psychic type coverage. Something to keep in mind is with Roost, after you use it once, Crobat loses his flying typing for a turn. Just something to keep in mind.
Now let's sail on over to Slateport City and make our way down to Route 110. There, our 5th Pokemon Electrike can be found and then later can be evolved into Manectric. Manectric doesn't start its proper gym debut until Winona's gym, and then does well against Wallace's gym too, aside from his Wish Cache. By this point though, it's the only Pokemon that's given this team any real trouble. We have a lot of Pokemon that can do neutrally well against Wallace's Wish Cache, so in all honesty, it isn't that big of a deal. For the Rivals Pokemon, the Manectric line does well against their Swellow and the Wilmer line. It also does fairly well against the Grunts from both evil teams. More so on Team Aqua because of all the water Pokemon. Team Magma has Numel, so it holds it back there as they are part ground type. For the main bosses, Manectric does extremely well against Archie and does neutrally well against Maxie, due to his Camerupt. Mega Manectric makes it better though, being able to outspeed the Crobats. Finally, we have the Elite Four and Champion, where it does neutrally well against everyone, besides for a few Pokemon. Sydney's grass types resist it, pretty much Drake's whole team resist it, and a few members from Steven's team give it trouble, being Credilli and Claydol, and a few moves for coverage from his other Pokemon. Aside from those, Manectric does pretty well for its Hoenn journey, being able to Mega Evolve and taking care of the water Pokemon from the surfing portion of the game. Not to mention its ability Intimidate can come in handy in certain situations as far as switching out goes. I say switching out because the Manectric line doesn't exactly have the greatest defenses. It's an attacker, not a wall, so beware of its defenses in terms of taking hits from certain Pokemon. Other than that, it is an amazing Pokemon with a nice move pool and offensive stats.
For Manectric, we think it should have Thunderbolt and Volt Switch. Thunderbolt because it's a strong move with good accuracy, unlike Thunder which has pretty bad accuracy, and Volt Switch for those times where you need to get Manectric out of battle but still want to get in some good damage. We also recommend Flamethrower for coverage, and for the last move, me and Mystic thought Double Team wouldn't be such a bad idea. With Manectric's high speed, you should be able to get off a Double Team before your opponent can attack, and you could use this to your advantage. In the Elite Four, Manectric can be used against Sydney's Cacturne and Shiftry, and Galatia's Ice Pokemon with Flamethrower, and her part Water Pokemon with its electric moves. And for Steven, Manectric can take care of Skarmory with Thunderbolt and Volt Switch.
Now we are on to our 6th and last Pokemon. We can find this Pokemon by going to Route 120, which is east of Fortress City. That Pokemon being Absol. This Pokemon is just overall amazing, and its stats back it up, especially with its Mega Evolution. Since Absol is obtainable near the late gym, the only gym it does extremely well against is Tate and Liza's gym. For the rival, it does neutrally well against all of their Pokemon. Absol doesn't do the greatest in terms of evil teams, because the majority of the Pokemon are dark types. Other than that, it does neutral against the Grunts Pokemon. For the main bosses, the same can be said because they use dark Pokemon, and it does neutrally well against the other Pokemon. Now we finally move over to the Elite Four, and our Phoebe problems are over, as Absol wipes the floor with her team. Against Glacia, it destroys her Frostlass pair if the player doesn't feel like using Hariyama with Stone Edge. Other than those Pokemon it dominates, Absol does neutrally well against Elite Four and Champion as a whole. Though Absol dominates and is an extraordinary Pokemon, regular and Mega Evolution, this Pokemon's defenses are extremely frail, meaning Absol is a glass cannon. Beware of how you use it. Other than that, Absol is a very fast and hard-hitting Pokemon, good on the physical and special side for attacking. Its vast move pool also makes this Pokemon probably the best on our team.
For Absol, this is going to be the most varied moveset. First, we suggest Night Slash. It's a solid move, especially for how early you get it, and of course, it's Stab. We suggest having Flamethrower and Aerial Ace to deal with those bug and fighting type weaknesses. Flamethrower is strong, and Aerial Ace is nice because it doesn't miss. And for its last move, we suggest X-Scissor, mainly because it's just a solid move, and it does give Absol a variety. In the Elite Four, Absol can do pretty well against Sydney, especially Shiftry and Cacturne. Those two are 4 times weak to bug. Absol destroys Phoebe with Night Slash, and you don't even have to worry about moves like Will-O-Wisp or Confuse Ray because of Mega Absol's ability, Magic Bounce. Absol can even help against Glacia with Flamethrower, and if Steven's Claydol and Metagross are giving you issue, Absol can do well against them with Night Slash and being immune to Psychic moves.
Well, that pretty much wraps up the best team for Hoenn. All of these Pokemon do very well in a Hoenn journey. We covered all sorts of obstacles, and overall, this team did pretty well to overcome them. Did we miss anything though? Do you feel there are better Hoenn Pokemon out there? Share them with us in the comment section below. I also wanted to thank my friend Zeldawars for accompanying me on this awesome journey through Hoenn.
And thank you for having me on, Mystic. You know what? After looking through the Hoenn Pokedex trying to find the best Pokemon, we ran into some pretty bad ones. Enough that me and Mystic were able to make a top 5 over on my channel.
We sure did, and boy, were some of those Pokemon bad. If you guys are interested in seeing some of the worst Pokemon we've ever witnessed from the Hoenn region, you can click on this annotation here to make your way over to Zelda's channel. With all that being said though, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and share this video with a friend. As always, I have been Mystic Umbreon, and I will see you in the future for more Pokemon content.